Hello, everybody. I'm Mel Doerr, the Aloha Shirt Psychic, and welcome to Morning Moments with Mel. That's hard to say. And I'm excited to have my guest Sheila. And hi, Sheila. How are you, my dear?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me. I
Good.
appreciate
I'm
it.
I'm glad that we're doing this again. We'll do it often. How's that?
Yes. Yes.
Now, Sheila, if they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
What you do is you just go onto YouTube and put in Celtic Tarot Sheila, and I should be right there.
All righty. Celtic Tarot. I say Tarot, you say Tarot, whatever.
Tomato, tomato.
Right. Celtic, Celtic, Tarot, Tarot, Sheila, Sheila, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. Everybody check it out.
Yeah.
Rather than maybe talk so much about all the political stuff, I just will say that um, I think it's time that we started talking about peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because to change the vibration a little bit and talk about world peace, acceptance, tolerance, unity. And many of us here believe that. Unfortunately, in certain governments, whose names I won't mention, they don't. They like to polarize people and they like to vilify those who disagree with them. And they use bullying tactics as that strategy. Um, and people are almost afraid to speak up anymore, but we have a constitutional right to do that. So it's okay to speak up.
Yeah.
It's sometimes when you speak up against the bullies, you face some repercussions for a while, but at the end of the day, the bullies will not win
No.
because somebody will come along and face the bully. So let's talk about peace. That's enough of that, but let's talk about peace.
Okay.
I like this new pope because he talks about peace, and he's the first American pope, and that's so cool. Um, Many of the world leaders are talking about peace, and perhaps this is too much of a loaded question, but how would you say that we could bring things, or how can we promote peace? How do we can speak up for it, yes, and we can stand up against injustice. We have to. Peace doesn't mean that we have to shut our mouths. We can stand up against injustice, like I said. But what do you intuit? How do you feel? How do you think that we can do that?
Well, I mean, we go back to the basics with that law of attraction, right? That law of attraction. How do we get peace pulled into our existence? Is that we start with the idea. We start talking about peace. We just start visualizing, the peace and the relaxation and stuff like that. And so the energy, you think of it as just kind of like pulling it into our existence. And if we get enough in this country to do that, that's going to be more powerful. What they're doing is not sustainable. I've been preaching that for quite some time, that what's going on in the country that we're not going to talk about is not sustainable. But what is sustainable? Love, peace, bringing that in. And enough people, we get that critical mass and enough people, and that is what's going to exist in our lives. And I think it's incredibly important. And you don't have to like sit for hours in meditation. You just literally start thinking about peace. What brought you peace? What do you like? What do you love? What is it that makes you happy? And just sit with that. That is all that's really needed sometimes.
And I think kind acts also helps bring about.
Sure, and I only want to do kind acts when I'm feeling love, right? I always think to myself, a kind act is going to bring the love, which can do it. If you're really in the worst mood ever, go do something nice for somebody. It can change who you are. But I like to maintain that feeling of love and kindness within me. So I do a lot of stuff to keep that also there so that when an opportunity, because sometimes I go seek kindness, but sometimes there's just a plain out opportunity that shows up in my life, and I'm like, wow, thanks. I had an opportunity to be kind that time.
Yeah, I think, it doesn't have to cost you anything. It just be like giving a smile to somebody, helping somebody
Yes.
across the street. I don't know, calling on a neighbor to see how they're doing.
Yeah, I have an elderly neighbor across the street that she's dealing with long-term COVID. And her dog is a senior dog, and so what I have done for her, because she just wasn't able to get around or anything like that, I just have just brought her dog into my house and started taking care of this senior dog. He doesn't have much longer to go, but she was just struggling so much and she felt so bad to ask for help because she lives alone. And so those are the type of things that you just be aware of your surroundings and who lives with you around you, to be able to help and do things like that. I'm just literally taking on a senior dog will help my neighbor that I've known for quite some time to, just it's okay. It's all okay.
Um, when I go through Starbucks in the morning, no, Starbucks didn't pay me to say this. Uh, I always pay for the car behind me,
Mm,
provided it's not exorbitant cost. Now, some people can't afford to do that. So the lady the other day at Starbucks said, "You always do that. Is it just because it's special day or whatever?" And I said, "Every day is a special day." And I do it because I just feel like it's the right thing to do. And I
correct.
always, when I pay for the car behind me, I tell the person at the window, tell them to pay it forward. In other words, do something nice.
Yeah.
Um, and one year during the holidays, they tracked it, and I went in like 3, 4 days later through the line, and the guy there said, "Oh my God, I went back like 32 cars. It just kept going." And and,
Mhm.
and then
Oh, how fantastic.
somebody asked me, "Well, what if the person behind you is a different political opinion or whatever, whatever, whatever?" And I said, "When I pay for the car behind me, I'm not thinking of their political opinions or views or whatever. I'm just doing something kind because it's the thing to do. When you do something kind or nice, you don't do it because you want something in return.
Correct.
You do it because, like you helping your neighbor with her dog, it makes us feel good to do it, and it's just the thing to do.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
think when we take away, and a lot of people will all do a kind act, and only because I want to win the lotto or I want to get this or that. Wrong answer. It's not like that. You do
Yeah, always check your motives. Always, always check
something.
your motives. Motives are incredibly important when it comes to any of that. And, like clout. I'm gonna do something nice so people think highly of me. That's probably not going to work out very well for you.
It's narcissism.
Yeah.
Yeah, check the motive. I like
Yeah.
that. A loving act.
Yeah.
Somebody and tell them, just ask how they're doing, or, it doesn't have to pay for the car behind you at a fast food place. Um, it just kind of makes me feel good to do it.
Yeah, I mean, monetary is a great way if you got it, give. But some people who can't give monetary, there's so a plethora of things that we can do throughout our day and while we're face to face with other humans. And you're right. Who am I to pick and choose if they deserve kindness or not? That's the higher power, or you call God, or that's their job. Their job to decide.
Everybody deserves kindness.
Exactly. So that's yeah. So that's their people like they don't deserve that. That's what's going on right now is they are literally playing that higher power or that God, if you will, of who deserves something and who doesn't deserve something. And that's not sustainable.
No, it isn't. I had somebody once made a negative comment in my comment section because I talked about doing something nice. And I said I paid for the car behind me at Starbucks. And it was like, well, if they're at Starbucks in that line, they can afford it. Why don't you give it to somebody who's homeless to get them a cup of coffee?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Huh.
wait a minute, you just negated the whole act of kindness.
Yeah.
And just for the record, if I do see somebody who's homeless, I help them out as well. So, I think you're right. Too many times, people who claim to be enlightened or even lack thereof, they're judgmental. They sit in judgment, like, well, how could you do that when there's people who really need it? Well, who am I? Maybe that person really needed it. Maybe not financially, but maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they just lost a loved one. Maybe they just needed something. Who knows?
Well, I'll tell you a story of somebody who paid for my coffee going through. I am a Starbucks girl. I love the Starbucks. And you're right. If you're heading to Starbucks, it has a little bit of a high-end feel to it, and I get that. I was having one of the worst days. And I was doing private investigation and I had my badge on, right? And I forgot that I had to take it off and stuff like that. And it was just one of those days where everything went wrong. I'm like, maybe some caffeine will help. So I pulled up. I don't know if you saw my badge or anything like that, but I pulled up and I was getting my thing and I go up there and somebody had paid for my coffee. Now, no, there was nobody behind me, but the thing about it was like that moment that somebody throughout my day thought of me for no reason. I didn't have to I didn't do anything to deserve that kindness whatsoever. And they gave it to me freely. And it just kind of floored me for just 1 minute. Wow, somebody thought of me that day.
Right. There you go.
That's what the important part is. It has nothing to do with if I can afford to buy a store. That's not the point.
Right.
That's not the point.
It's just an act of kindness. Like one time I was in line and there's another place there and traffic goes both ways and a guy cut in front of me and I thought, well, I can cut him off and blah, blah, blah. And who is
Oh
he?
yeah.
And I just went, go ahead.
Yeah.
And that judgment sets in.
It does. We're human.
And I wanted to give him the middle finger and all that. And I just thought, nah. So, I had an attitude about it. But then when I got to the window, I went to pay, and they said the guy in front of you paid. He said he's sorry to cut you off, and thanks for letting him in. And so I felt ashamed of myself because I went through all that negativity and all that judgment, all that anger. I'm like, and for what?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I mean, we can be enlightened and still get angry and speak up against injustice.
Sure.
That doesn't mean we have to be doormats. But I think, as a country, we have to proclaim back being kind. We can be proactive. We can stop injustice. We can stand up for someone being bullied. That's a kind act.
Yes.
So I think, many of us in this country have forgotten how to be kind.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, we're too busy fighting and pushing up against what's going on right now. And it's really, really hard. It's really hard to look at them and go, you know what? I know who you are. I know what you have said. I know how you've been putting this and that other. And you go to your own thing and go, I wish I felt more compassion for this person, but I don't. And then I start going, am I changing or are they changing? Am I changing or are they changing? And I have to really ask myself, just like the current events, a life is a life is a life is a life. Do I feel bad that a life? Yeah, I do. I can't judge any of the rest of this stuff. I can have a thought on it. I can have a thing like, I will never do that because I don't want that to happen to me, kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, life is important. Current existing life is important.
I agree.
Nobody has the right to take that away from you.
I agree. No matter who you are.
Yeah, no matter who it is, no matter who it is. I've never been for the death penalty. And there's a few reasons why I always think that their punishment should be all the way to the end of their natural life. That's what I think, because if they took somebody else's life and they couldn't live out to their natural life, they should be able to do that, but only in punishment. And remember that. I think they get off easy, for one. That's my own personal judgment on that. But they exist for a reason. And who
Well,
am I to choose which way they should go?
you know, it's hard because we want everybody to think and act like we do, but then we don't have
Yeah,
robots. And it's hard to come to the conclusion that my job is not to change others.
correct.
My job is to change myself and to be the best person I can be. Because when people see that, not everybody will be the best person they can be, but it is contagious. The same
Mhm.
as hate and bigotry and injustice is contagious.
Sure is.
You know, it's like I tell this story, and it's probably almost cliche now because I've told it so many times. When I moved in my townhouse, it was all mud and it looked horrible. And, I moaned about it and the association should do something, but we're responsible here for our own little backyards. They're tiny, they're tiny. And so, the association should do something. And you know, uh, I complained to the association and everybody else's backyards look horrible. And I'm like, it's mud back there. Why don't you do something? Well, you have to do it on your own. Your backyard is up to you. So we went out and we bought flowers and we bought all kinds of stuff and made the backyard look really, really nice. And then everybody's commenting, wow, your backyard looks so nice. And pretty soon they started doing theirs. And pretty soon, almost every backyard in the complex, with the exception of two, had done their backyards and they looked great.
Yes.
So by taking action and taking care of my own backyard in a loving
Yes.
way and not an angry way, then other people saw that and they decided to take action to clean up their backyard.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. When we walk into a room and we're kind and smiling and energetic and wanted to do things positive, it is contagious to somebody else who wants to also follow in that suit. They don't even know that they want to do it until they see it, right? That's that manifestation thing. That's walking into the room and spreading the goodness. People change and feel it even if they don't realize it.
Right. I've had people that no matter what I said, no, that won't work. This won't work. You need to
Mhm.
tell me what I'm supposed to do
Yeah.
in my life. Well, you're supposed to help other people. But how do I do that? I'll say, well, in a perfect world, what would you do? Well, I don't even know. And then they'll list some things. And then if I talk about that, no, 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 no. And I sometimes find myself getting really exasperated and frustrated. But rather than that, I step out of it and I say, okay, but sometimes we are all guilty of putting our own roadblocks up
Oh,
for
we
whatever
are.
reason. Maybe it's attention seeking, maybe it's who knows. But we need to step around those and think that there are strategic plans we can do. And I've had people say, well, you told me this was going to happen and it never did. And I'm like, well, number one, we're not always 100% accurate. But
No.
what did you do? Were you proactive? Well, no, I really didn't do anything. I just sat at home. Well, sitting at home on the couch is not going to find you a romance partner. It's not going to find you a new job. It doesn't fall from the sky.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to be proactive. So
That is so
I
true.
think part of being kind is being proactive.
You know where I struggle at kindness now? Kindness and all that, and we're like, okay, yeah, rah rah. But the true conversation I think maybe that we're having is where I struggle at being kind. Have you ever just met somebody and your intuitiveness already knows that they have like a judgment against you?
Absolutely all the time.
And yeah, same here. Same here. I'm like, I have no idea what I've done. I don't know why you're not talking to me. I don't know why, it's like that mystery of conversation that's missing, but you have the feeling. You're like, I feel something here. And I struggle at putting that aside and being kind, irrelevant of the information that I'm receiving. Because sometimes I'll walk in and I'm like, you have the major thing. And my first reaction sometimes is, all right, you want to go? We'll go. You want to take it outside? Well, you know what I mean? And I have to sometimes just literally do what I can. Sometimes it's just not say anything because I'm having the worst time of putting it aside and to be kind no matter what. And I don't, what do you do? Because I was a natural redhead before I turned gray. And even though that's proven to not really be the thing, but I always said, that natural red, I'm gonna go redheaded on you, is what I would say. But I have to live by what I say. Be kind no matter what. How do you kind of place that aside and what is your best tactics? Because
Well,
that's where I struggle the most.
just because we're kind and easygoing doesn't make us easy.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that we have to be a doormat. So there's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. So if somebody is being really nasty, and I tell people always listen to your intuition. That's the first thing that comes through. So if it tells you so and so feels okay, but that but is your intuition's way of saying it ain't right. Be careful. Set boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, we all get angry. Of course, kind people get angry. We're going to get angry. It's a human emotion. But there are some people out there who are just so mean and nasty. They want to get us angry because then they can use that as as a justification for them to retaliate. For example, I had a woman in my office and she was just nasty. And I'm a Catholic, not a very good one. And they were sitting out front making horrible comments about the Catholic Church because they saw my blessing from the Pope. And they were just being really mean and rude. And the receptionist was texting me, I'm going to tell these women off. You need to do something. So one came in my office and sat down. She had this big cross on her neck. And she goes, well, before we get started, you have to say the Our Father and you have to do this prayer because you're Catholic and that's of the devil and your work is of the devil. And I don't want to attract any demons. And I saw red. And I said to her, well, if my work is of the devil, what brings you here? Well, if you're so psychic, you should know that. And the nicer I got, the more mean she became. And, I'm thinking, no, I'm not being a doormat here. And I just said, I don't attract bad spirits. I have integrity with what I do. And she goes, well, I doubt that. I put my hands on my desk. I stood up. I said, I am finished with you. You can leave. And I walked out front and I said to the women, I know what you've been saying. I am a Catholic. I find it offensive. And I'm asking you to leave in a nice professional way. And if you do not, I will call the police and they can handle it.
Mm.
Well, we're going to do a bad write-up. I said, go right ahead because I can respond to that, but
Yeah.
please leave. I was fuming,
Yeah.
but they wanted to get me angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they left, I wouldn't have read them anyway. I would have just said, sorry, I can't do this. Please leave. And then I beat myself up for allowing
Oh,
them to get to me. So we're human. But
yeah.
I think we can still do kind acts. But if somebody's bullying us and treating us poorly, then we have to stand up for ourselves and we have to set boundaries. Setting boundaries doesn't make us any less kind. And listening to our inner voice doesn't mean we're being judgmental.
Right.
It just means, and some people they come in and they're being nasty right off the bat, but then, you get to that core and they're angry and they're hurt. And sometimes we take it out on people who really don't deserve it. So you have to be cognizant of that. But this lady was just really mean and nasty,
Oh, yeah.
and that didn't fly with me.
No.
So there's a difference, I think, between being kind and being a doormat. We're human. We're good
Oh,
at
I
in
agree.
human ways.
Yeah. 100% agree about that. Yeah. You're not allowed to treat me a certain type of way. And that won't be tolerated. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. Like I will remove myself from the situation because you are not allowed to talk to me like that or treat me like that, right? I
I,
get that.
I treat others
Um,
the way I'd like to be treated.
True, the golden rule is incredibly important.
That's right.
Here's another one that I struggle with. And I don't know what it is, and I really have not really figured it out throughout my whole life, but I come across a lot of people who are jealous of me. And I am like down to earth. Everything is okay. I am not trying to overpower you or do anything, but I don't know if it's an attraction that I'm having or a life lesson, but I come across a lot of people who are jealous. And jealousy is like some of the meanest energy out there. So have you come across people that kind of hit you with the jealousy attitude? What do you do about it? Because I still struggle with that. And I just want to look them and just kind of shake them and say, "Hey, we walk shoulder to shoulder in this world. We're humans. I'm human, you're human. There's nothing different.
Well, who was it who says it's none of our business what other people think of us?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I
it's
mean,
true.
jealousy is a really bad thing,
But you can feel it. You can
but
feel
feel
jealousy.
it. But, all we can do is be ourselves and sometimes maybe ask them, have I done something? Is there what, you can't say you're jealous of me. They'll say, well, I'm not jealous.
Yeah.
But I would just say, have I done something? I've tried that approach. Um, why don't you like me? And some people would be, well, I don't like you because you're gay, and I don't like you because of this. And I was just like, hey, that's your choice.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
still hurts, of course. And many of us, when we get hurt, we want to hurt right back. We want to hurt them more than they hurt us. I struggle with that as well. So if somebody's jealous of us, really, what did the great prophets do when they met people that disagreed with them or treated them poorly or were jealous of them? They blessed them and went on and did their work. That's all you can do, really. You know, it's funny how we pay attention to those who don't like us, and I'm guilty of this too, but yet we never step back and look at the ones who do like us. And I think that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, I have, well, I have the duality inside of me. I think you're an Aries, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Aries. I love Aries. I mean, they're chargers. They take life by the bull and go with it, and I love it. However, with me being a Gemini, I have that duality. I can literally be that angry person, but also see underneath why they're angry or why they're saying that. So that duality hits me a lot. Where I think when I am intuitively feeling and going and feeling that, um, I don't have that third leg that gives me a great and wonderful conversation of how to address it sometimes because I just like I don't know I first my confusion. Why are you jealous of me? What have I done? What have I said? What do you see that makes you jealous? And I have to remember to untether myself from their emotions and their experience and their stuff because I'm always blaming me for their jealousy. Isn't that weird?
No, we do that. I think, we because we can act like it doesn't bother us, but it does. We're
It
human,
does.
sensitive. But it's like, is what is it in me that triggered that in you? Uh,
Yeah.
but maybe sometimes it has nothing to do with us. Maybe it's them. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, even if they're angry, I will still tell them, okay, it's okay to be angry, but you don't have to take that out on me. And that happened the other day. A girl, I was running a little bit behind. We called her and told her 3 times. Well, I didn't get the voicemail. I go, well, if you would have answered your phone, you would have known. Well, I'm in a hurry. I'm going to have to go. I said, okay, we can reschedule you, but I want the session. I go, well, then just relax. I'll be with you in about 5 minutes, you know. But I didn't, here, I'll show you. I didn't get it. I said, we called you, whether or not you got it. I don't know about that, but just relax. We'll be okay. So she came in and I said, I understand that you're frustrated and angry, but don't take it out on somebody who's sitting here and trying to help you or trying
Help you.
to, tune
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she backed off and she goes, I'm so sorry. I said, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started. So you can still be a little assertive and be kind about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think, the other thing that hurts is when somebody acts as if they're friendly, but yet they want to hone in on somebody else's coattails and use their ideas to forward their own stuff. And I see that a lot, and that really bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I'm aware, the thing is to be aware of it and
Yeah.
just still be nice, not hypocritical, be nice and,
Right?
and just be aware of it, and that being aware of it can, you know, can prevent them from doing that to you, if that makes any sense.
That is true. I know, I think I know what you're talking about. When I engage, especially in our realm, I always want to be friends. Right? I'm like, I want to meet them. I want to talk to them. I want this. I want that. I want, and I remember a long time ago. I think I was on somebody's like YouTube, and it was before I had my own channel. And I'd get on there and I had a different name to it, but I'd interact and they were so kind and they're like, "Oh, so and so's here, la 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 la." And then I started my own channel and I came back with a different name and it was a channel. And I'm acting normal like I normally do in this chat, but they, because it was a YouTube channel now, said out loud, like she's just wanting to get subscribers. She's using this, platform for that. And it hit me so hard because I'm normal. My name changed, but I'm interacting with them normal. But just that slight change, it gave me a perspective. I'm like, oh, right? Oh. And I had to literally walk away from that whole situation and go,
I
I
think
didn't I was confused by it, to be honest with you.
part
I
of
was
that is just
really
knowing the
confused.
person. Like, I have never used anybody in the community to better my own channel. You know,
No.
if I'm on their channel, it's because they've asked me, or if I have them on mine, but it's because I genuinely like them.
Yes.
If I don't get a good feeling with somebody, or if something says no, I'll just graciously say thank you because
Yes.
I'm too busy. But I never have taken advantage of anybody to get to where I am, wherever that is.
That's bad juju.
It is bad juju. And I just
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Now, if
Me neither.
somebody else had a problem with that, then maybe they're guilty of doing it. But
Yeah.
but
It was weird.
but at the end of the day, here's what I tell my students, and I have to remind myself, just do your work.
Yes. I
Like I
say
just
that a lot.
100,000 subscribers and I'm not bragging about it. I'm happy about it, but I went public and I thank the people who helped me get there.
Right.
I really owe it all to Linda Grindle because she's the one who encouraged me, who had me on her show, who, has been nothing but kind and helpful. And I would never take advantage of somebody who has helped me and stood behind me. I wouldn't take advantage of anybody anyway. But the
Right.
bottom line is, I think that, unfortunately, there's opportunists everywhere. But I think if we're really genuine and sincere and just do
Yeah.
our work, then that speaks for itself.
I agree. Yes, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I am the same way. I'm like, I really want to form a relationship with everyone around me. And like with you and when I met you at the retreat, I'm like, I get to meet him face to face. I get to, interact with his energy. And same with Linda. Linda and I, have collaborated in things like that. And it's never been like I'm going to collaborate with her so I can gain some subscribers. That's awful. That's an awful thing to do. It is the feeling of trying so hard to form relationships. I suck at it from the get-go. I try very, very hard to continue relationships and to make sure that I maintain them. There's a whole big, huge story is the reason why I struggle with that. It comes from the family, right? None of them maintained a relationship with me, and I was never taught how to maintain a relationship. Now, going all the way back to the kindness and things like that is the thing, the reality it is that to be kind is to literally do the work within inside of you so that you are that kind person, not fake kind.
Yep.
You are the kind person, right? Be kind no matter what. Even when people misjudge you, misrepresent you, think something, something, something about you. You know what I mean? I was like, I can't do anything about that.
No.
All I can do is maintain what I do.
It's when I meet clients, I talk to them like we're talking, but I'm very I swear and I'll cry with them, but I'm still professional. I think it was the cool crone, Colleen Pearl, who said, who gave me a really good compliment. I really appreciated it. She said, Mel, the one thing about you is when you do YouTube is that you're very professional.
Yes.
And I try to maintain that, even though, I can do a show and, Linda and I are joking, cutting up, or whoever I'm on, we're joking, cutting up, making a little innuendo. But,
Right.
and somebody said I wasn't professional because I was sipping stuff. And I'm like, well, I had throat cancer. Hello, I have to because my throat gets dry.
Oh yeah, they get picky.
Yeah, I know.
They don't
Like,
like me putting chapstick on, or
yeah.
sometimes I'd take my drink and go like that. Yeah, they get picky. They
But I
just
think,
do.
but I think that's good because I want to be real.
Yes.
And you can still be professional and be real. But,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, people in the community, I've become friendly with many people in the community, many of the
Yeah.
psychics, and it's given me a wonderful opportunity to speak out and to meet new friends and to do my work. And that's all I want to do is my work.
Yeah.
And but like in places, for example, when we hosted the event here in Chicago, or Linda had it in Sedona when we met.
Yeah.
But with the attendees, I am there for them.
Yes.
Uh, you know, I'm not there for me. And so I try to be very professionally friendly. I try to be very gracious. I try to be, all of that. Now,
Yes.
sometimes I go in my room, I'm like, ah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
publicly. So I try to be, well, I don't try to be, I am professionally friendly. But yet, behind all that, there are people and supporters and clients that I've become really, really good friends with. And I'm
Oh,
so thankful for that.
yes.
Well, for some of the jerks, unfortunately, we focus on that. But then I have to step back from that and say, I'm thankful because of all the friends I've made. And if people get
I
jealous,
think
that's their thing. I mean, it hurts us, yes, but
just to be misjudged, I think, is sometimes a lot of my problems. And
that's on them.
you,
But that's on them.
it truly is on them. However, my unhealed little girl sometimes, I just want them to be my friend, right?
Well, but it's
And I have to acknowledge that about myself. It makes me feel like I'm weak or
no,
I'm
it's not
shameful. You
weakness.
know what I mean?
I
But the
think
truth is like I just want to be your friend.
I think we're all that way. All right, really, we are. It's people say, "Oh, I'm not that way." Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
But I think when that happens, we need to step back from that and say, "Okay, the people that don't like me, I want to make like me, and I bend over backwards for that. But the ones that really like me, I know that they're there, they like me, so I don't have to do anything." And then I have to rewire it. No, the ones that really like me, those are the ones I should be bending over backwards for.
exactly.
My true friend. The ones who don't, eh. And I have to keep telling, we all have to remind ourselves of that.
It's true.
So I
Just
think
like
it's with
our
all of us.
Aiden.
I think it's with all of us,
I do. Like our Aiden. Our Aiden. I love
sweetheart.
Aiden. Ah, I've met him face to face. Have you met him face to face? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Ah, you know what I mean? It was an instant love of him. And every time he just makes my heart just sing every time we connect and the energies connect and stuff like that. And him and I are easy. It's easy. It's the ones that you kind of have to put some work into sometimes that can be really confusing. And that's where sometimes we have to tweak our kindness, right? Where do I go from here?
Here again, we can still be kind to people who
Oh
don't
yeah.
like us, but we don't have to be doormats.
No, 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 no
Because if
doormat.
somebody, if they're a kind person, they wouldn't try to put us down or walk all over us anyway.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to bring a little bit of that up to see if anybody else is having a little bit of a struggle
I
sometimes.
think we all have.
Yeah.
I've had people that don't like me because of my political beliefs. And, when I hear their political beliefs, I'm like, ooh, and that judgment comes in. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me step back from that. And, people I've known for years, and they're different political beliefs than I am. And I'm like, it's sad that we used to in this country, we could have different political beliefs and still be friends. And now we're being told by the powers that be, if we're not of the same political belief of the powers that be, then we are to be vilified and persecuted. And that just so unfair. And I will speak out against that. But, I will not stop liking the friends that I've liked all these years because they think or have a different opinion than I do, you know.
Yeah.
I
I,
mean,
I wish it would, yeah, I would love to go back to just having different opinions.
well, that's where we need to get back to.
We do need to get back to that.
Now
I
we're
would love to just argue about policy. You know what I mean? But
and
right
that's
now
we
we're not there. Yeah, we're not at that place. We're in safety.
a good debate is fine,
Yes.
but but it's sad that all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but that we are taught to dislike or hate each other because somebody has a different opinion than we do. And that's not how I fly. That's not how I operate.
No. And see, like here, say, think about that. I'm out with you, right? I'm out there, and I know that there's somebody over there that would want to do bodily harm to you, right? And that's the problem, right? I'm going to react to that. I'm going to reject them. I'm going to move away from them. I'm going to get out of the vicinity. I'm going to have an attitude about that.
And you have the right to have an attitude about that.
Exactly. So
It's like
that's where we're at. We're not in a discussion of being if somebody believes that gay is right or wrong.
it
Okay,
doesn't
good, fine. Go sit over there. I don't care.
it doesn't
But bodily
it,
harm is where I have a problem.
that okay, we can still set boundaries and get
Yes.
out of the way of bodily harm. And it's never right to cause bodily harm unless
No.
it's in self-defense. But here again, we we need to heal our wounds and get that back to a place where we can have a discussion with each
Yes.
other. And it's unfortunate that both sides of the coin are guilty of that.
Yeah. I agree. We have extremists on this side and we have extremists on that side, and we in putting them together is an explosion. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I I do not want to play with any of the fringes
My
whatsoever.
response to that would be, how would you feel if somebody did this, this, and that to
Yeah.
your family member,
Yeah.
the same things that you're doing to this person?
Yeah.
There was just a gentleman here um, in Chicago who probably didn't have papers and was pulled over by a certain element of
Mm-hmm.
powers that be, whose name I won't mention, and he took off running and he was shot and killed only because he took off running
Yep.
and only because he was Latino.
Yep.
That is wrong on every single level. And if that
I
person that did that, that pulled that trigger, were sitting in front of me, I say, what led you to this?
yeah.
What hatred led you to this? And how would you feel if somebody did that to your family member? Only because maybe they had blue eyes. So I think that's how we have to program things and step back from the hatred, no matter what side of the fence we're on. But it's okay to have a peaceful assembly and,
Yes.
and the right to peaceful assembly and to speak up against intolerance, hatred, and injustice. You
Hmm.
know, um, but I think here again we come back full circle and we come to peace. And how
Yes.
do we do that? By doing kind acts. It's not going to change the world,
Mm.
but I start here. And
And
if
I'm a full believer that
forgiveness,
it does change
forgiveness
the
is
world.
another big one.
Yeah.
Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or condoning bad behavior. It means we move forward. In Hawaiian,
Mm.
there's a practice called ho'oponopono. And, some white person took it and blew it all out of shape and proportion. And, many people's, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I love you, whatever. But that's not true ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono is just about talking about the heva, the wrongs that a certain family member or somebody has committed, to bring it out and not pointing fingers. All the hevas everybody's committed, to bring it out and talk about it, to get it
Yes.
out without judgment so that the healing can occur. And that's what we need to do in this country. Get it out, talk about it, come up with solutions so we can heal as a country. But rather than doing that, it's like throwing, the it's, the answer to gun violence is not more guns. That's like pouring gas,
No.
on
Yeah.
fire. We need to heal. And we do that, I think, by forgiving. It doesn't mean accepting or condoning bad behavior. It means we move forward. I wish that it was mandatory that Ho'oponopono would be taught in the schools and at
Yeah.
home. And um, it's not going to cure everything, but it would sure help a lot.
I mean, I would have loved for my parents to have taught me about my emotions and what goes on. I mean, they were Texans. They were born in Texas. My two older sisters and my whole extended family is Republican and Texan and churchy and all of that.
Only because, I grew up in the South as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes in those Southern cultures, depending on where the families came from, it wasn't cool to show emotion. Well, it
No.
was like this bubble you had, and you did not get in somebody's bubble because it was considered offensive. And it wasn't until I became older that I came to Illinois that people hugged. And still, if somebody gets really too close in my bubble with a hug, I get a little uncomfortable. It's just that
Yeah.
upbringing. So, yeah, we comment on how we were brought up, but we also have to step back and think the culture they were brought up in.
That was my point, was that, yeah, that's who they were, that's who the parents were, that's how they knew. They never addressed emotions, but they addressed behavior. That's all that was ever taught to me was good behavior or bad behavior through the course of the church. And I don't remember ever a lesson of how to handle this emotionally, how to handle that emotion. So I had to do it all as an adult. And when you're doing it all as an adult, boy, I tell you, other adults have certain type of opinions about you. I'm like, I didn't learn that back then. I gotta do it here. I gotta do it right now.
It doesn't mean we have to continue to do that.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was always children are to be, well, my mom was great. But my dad was very staunch and very, if there's dust, you get spanked and oh my God. But which I don't agree with hitting kids ever. But
Ever.
you know, he was children are to be seen and not heard.
Yep.
Also, you're taking away our voice.
Yep.
Now, as an adult, I can see that, but as a kid, we used to go hide and listen around the corner so we could hear what the adults were talking about. That
Yep.
was a little game we had. But my father, his mother died when he was 9 years old, so he was shoved from pillar to post with his sisters. So he never had that whole idea of a mother. And my father, when he was born, his mother was in her late 40s and his dad was an old man. I mean, my grandfather from Germany died when I was like 6 years old and he was 93.
Mm,
And so, in those days, the man went out, he was a farmer, he farmed to feed the family. The woman, stayed at home, cooked, did all this, all that, and she was dead. And so my grandfather was a good man. He just really wasn't a warm man. He was very staunch. And my father got that. My father didn't get the ability to give love. He thought he did, but he didn't.
right.
And so it took me years to forgive that. Now, does it hurt any less? No. But if I hang on to that, then I'm not growing as a person. And that's the whole thing of Ho'oponopono, is letting go of that.
Let it go.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be that way. But understanding why he was the way he was and kind of putting myself in his shoes and how horrible it must have been for him as a child and as an adult.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard to do, but that's another way that we can learn to practice kindness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's kindness to us that we can shift our perspective
Right.
and give them the grace that I want, right? It's not punishment for you and forgiveness for me. It is literally either forgiveness for everyone or punishment for everyone, including me. And I choose forgiveness for everyone, including me. And that is that is the difference I think that our country is doing is they want grace. Did this and did that. We want grace, but you have to be held accountable.
Well, I agree. I think that, we can still set boundaries and,
Yep.
kindness doesn't mean that we're weak. It doesn't mean we're weak at all, but we can still speak up. And I believe in helping the underdog always.
Right. And I wanted to kind of think when you were talking about boundaries, is always when you keep on saying boundaries, it's not like I'm putting my hand up and like you are there. Boundaries is I have enough self-esteem to know that this situation
Is wrong.
is not allowed in my
It's
life.
wrong.
Yeah.
And a
And
lot
that's what the difference is. I don't have to berate you. I don't have to beat you down to keep my boundaries. My boundaries are this is not
bigotry and racism and
allowed.
discrimination and rounding up groups of
Yeah.
people under the guise that they're criminals when they're
Yeah.
not is wrong. It's
Wrong.
totally wrong. And part of being kind is to stand up and say when something is wrong.
Yep.
You know, it's like I've told people, okay, what's wrong for you, maybe is right for me, but there's guidelines here. You don't treat people this way. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've heard people say with this country, well, if we don't stop this, English is not even going to, the language is not going to exist, la, 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 la. And that's just misinformation.
And who
You have to
cares?
correct that, you know.
Why can't we all, you go over to Germany or Italy or anything like that, every one of them speak English.
Well, English doesn't have to be the world language, but
No, but they learned another language in order to communicate. We can do the same thing.
correct, but we're
That's what I
still,
was saying.
but we're,
Like, yeah.
phobic. Um, I like Pete Buttigieg because what he did.
Yeah.
I've never met him. Intuitively, I feel like he's a very kind man. But, rather than get in the finger pointing and the heated debates and all that, he just stated the facts. Here's
He
the facts.
does.
And these are the facts, and you cannot distort those facts.
Yeah, I really like him.
And
I really
so
like how he
I
communicates.
tell people when they do stuff like that, that's your opinion, it's not mine, but let's stick to the facts.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I was like, let's establish some ground rules before we have a conversation, is what I always say.
Right.
When I don't, yeah, facts, no opinions, or, whatever it is that we're talking about. Let's
We're
establish some
going to
ground
have an
rules.
opinion. But if our opinion vilifies and denigrates and is
Yes,
bigoted or prejudiced against others or vilifies others, other innocent people, then that is clearly wrong. It's not
yeah,
acceptable, and it's not acceptable from our government. It's not acceptable on any level. And I think that many of us are speaking out against that, and rightfully so.
agreed.
We don't have to make it hateful. We just say it's not cool and we won't tolerate it.
Yep. I've done that already in my own life. Like when somebody says that, I said, well, um, that's not the right way to think about it. Or in however I think of the kind words at the time. They come to me at the time, not necessarily right now, but I have stopped before. I wasn't able to speak up. I would see it, hear it, and all of that. I'd walk away, but I wasn't able to speak up for some reason. And for the last probably 10 years, whatever has changed and healed inside of me or whatever it is, I am now able to have the confidence to go, that's not how we do things, or that's not right, or that was prejudice. I've literally just said that was really prejudiced what you just said, and I'll explain why.
Like when
Because
I was
sometimes they don't know.
right, like when I was in Hawaii, I was talking about one of my friends, and I said, I like to talk about Ho'oponopono, and she said that's not pono. Pono means what's right, and she goes, "Where did you learn about it?" I said, "All over the place, but it wasn't from." The people who wrote about it who weren't really Hawaiian. I've read about it from the people who wrote about it who really are Hawaiian. And I said, plus hanging out with Hawaiians. And I said, it's all about forgiveness. And she goes, oh, well, then it is Pono and Pono with that. So, but her and I, we have these wonderful conversations and we can disagree with each other
Yeah.
and still love each other. You know,
Yeah.
that's Ho'oponopono.
Yes. I
And
love a different a thought process or something new, or I
right,
love it. I
right,
encourage it.
right.
It makes me think.
Bingo. And that's what we need to really get back to.
Yeah, because it readjusts something, and I have to be readjustable, is what I always say it.
Right.
because something new information comes in, I need to be able to readjust my sails to always follow the path that I want to follow.
Called open-minded enough. And
Yes.
you might not agree with it, but to at least hear,
Hear it.
unless it's violent rhetoric, and then I won't listen to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not necessary.
That's so
It's not necessary.
been wonderful. I thought it was time that somebody talked about peace and kindness. So everybody, just one of the ways, speak up, absolutely speak up against injustice, hate, discrimination. Let's speak up for what's happening to our Latino brothers and sisters because that could very easily be us. But let's also do kind acts.
Yes,
And speaking up for them is a kind act, by the way.
it is.
It's like, no, no, wait, you're not alone in this. We don't like it because you're being bullied. We don't accept that.
Yes.
And so everybody do a kind act. This has been wonderful. I've got to run. But
Thank
let's
you.
do this again.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice to
Well,
get
I'll
away.
invite you to my channel.
Okay. It's nice to get away from politics, isn't it?
It is nice. It feels good sometimes.
All right, my friend, you stay well.